Hello there, everyone. You're back with Firearm Fury. Thanks for joining in. Today, I have got a review of an $80 scope. This is a scope that I'm doing a scope giveaway with. So if you have not checked out my scope video giveaway, go ahead and check that out so you know what you'll need to do to have an opportunity of receiving this scope for free. I'll have a link up above to that video and down in the description. So the Monstrum Tactical. This is about an $80 scope. It's a 1 to 3 power zoom, and I'll have all of the specifications on the screen. So I'll go through some of the features here. It has an illuminated reticle, as you can see here, green and red with different power levels. You can see here it's a 1 to 3 by 20 scope. Has a 1-inch tube, has a little bubble level for mounting. Unfortunately, this won't do you any good shooting because it's on top. You're not going to be able to see that when you're shooting. Let's open up the turrets and see what the turrets look like. This is an MOA scope, and one click at 100 yards is half an MOA. One revolution is 30 MOA. I don't know if you can see that in the scope, but it has a little mark so that you know what number you're on. There are no horizontal marks to indicate how many revolutions the turret has been turned. That being said, you have 30 MOA. That's a decent amount of elevation to work with. Now these turrets, they have a little bit of play. You can feel the clicks. They're also very audible. It seems to be a pretty good turret. Like you could probably, use it a little bit for tracking elevation. We'll open up the windage turret here. And they are caps. The caps are nice. There is a little texture on the turrets. As you can see, the windage turret feels exactly the same as the elevation turret. A little bit of play. You can really hear the click and feel the click. So that's good. Not bad for sure. The scope quality, it's fully aluminum. As I said before, 1-inch tube. It actually comes with scope rings, so that's nice. For $80 you get some 1-inch rings and a scope. The rings aren't great, but for most purposes I'm sure they would work fine. Now I actually performed a tracking test on this scope. So here are the results. If you don't know what a tracking test is, first you'll see here that I shoot the center target. I shoot it twice to get maybe a more consistent reading. Maybe I pull a shot, or it is 22, so they're not loaded perfectly. Maybe there's a little less powder or something in one of the loads. So I do 2 shots so we can kind of average them out and get a better idea. From center, I then move to the top right corner, shooting 2 shots again. So I move it to 10 MOA, which at 100 yards would be roughly 10 inches, a little bit more than 10 inches. But for simplicity's sake, we'll keep it at 10 inches. And I move to the right 10 MOA, which at 100 yards that would be 10 inches. But we are at 50 yards, so that's going to cut it down to 5 inches. From the top right, I move to the bottom right. Now I move 20 MOA down, 10 MOA to get back to the 0 elevation, and then another 10 MOA down. And it's already 10 MOA to the right, so I leave the windage turret the same. Now these are both in the black, kind of hard to see, but the shots are right on top of each other. I then move to the bottom left, and I move that 20 MOA. The first 10 MOA is to get it back to the windage 0. The next 10 is to move it 5 inches to the left at 50 yards. Better said, 10 MOA left. I then move to the top left corner I move it 20 MOA, again 10 MOA to get it to elevation 0, and then another 10 MOA to move it up 5 inches at 50 yards. Lastly, to go back to 0, I move it 10 MOA right to get the windage back to the 0, and I move it 10 MOA down to get the elevation back to 0. Now in theory, we should be hitting right on top of the other shots. As you can see, one was a little right and the other was a little right and low. So, that first shot, which was right and low, that partly could have been me, but we have that second shot showing that it went right as well. So it probably did go right a little bit. Maybe the elevation wasn't off completely. Maybe that one was just me, but it didn't go exactly back to 0. That being said, I feel like the scope performed pretty well in the tracking test. The elevation was pretty much spot on, except for when I was shooting at the top right corner, it seemed to be a little high. As far as the windage goes, the windage didn't seem to track quite as well. It was pretty close. The bottom left corner was off the furthest, about an inch off. But overall, it did pretty good. Alright, so what do I think about the Monstrum Tactical Scope? Well, first of all, for the money, I think it's pretty good. You could spend more and get a little bit more clarity and a little better eye relief, but I don't think it would be worth it. There is a scope out there. It's about twice as much. Does have better tracking as far as returning to 0. But otherwise, this scope would be great. With the reticle, if you're shooting a 223 or something with similar ballistics, you can shoot about 500 yards. You could probably even use the turret for tracking elevation. I would just do a few more tests to make sure it's going to return to 0 within your specific tolerances. So that being said, it's a pretty good scope. And I would check out my scope giveaway video. Again, a link is in the description below. For one, you have the opportunity to win this scope and a few others for free. There's not very many comments on that video yet, so go check out that video to figure out what the requirements are. It's all free, really simple to do. Secondly, I compare this scope with some other scopes that are about twice as much, so you can see how it stacks up against those scopes. Anyway guys, thanks for supporting the channel. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe. I'll see you next time here on Firearm Fury.